Announced overnight, just in the last few hours, he is ending all trade talks with Canada effective immediately over a Canadian television ad opposing U.S. tariffs. In a social media post, Trump wrote, quote, "The Ronald Reagan Foundation has just announced Canada has fraudulently used an advertisement, which is fake, featuring Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs." The television ad from the province of Ontario features audio from a 1987 Ronald Reagan speech that does criticize tariffs. We should note the audio is not fake, as the president claimed, but it was edited and rearranged. Here's a portion of that ad this morning.
High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition.
That ad aired during an American League Championship Series game between the Toronto Blue Jays and Seattle Mariners, which pulled in more than 9 million viewers when it was broadcast. Former President Reagan's foundation says it is reviewing legal options, accusing the Ontario provincial government of using selective audio and video, saying the ad misrepresents Reagan's address and that Ontario's government did not seek nor receive permission to use and edit the remarks. The office of Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney did not immediately respond to requests for comment, but a spokesperson for Ontario Premier Doug Ford denied any wrongdoing in the ad campaign, telling CBC News, quote, "The commercial uses an unedited excerpt from one of President Reagan's public addresses, which is available through public domain." So because of that ad, Joe, overnight, President of the United States saying, we're not talking to Canada, our neighbor to the north, anymore. He's very upset about that. Those are Reagan's words. Yes, edited. Things do get edited. We can go back to Reagan's comments about immigration. There are a lot of things we can call back to the man who was the touchstone for generations for conservatism.
Well, you know, yesterday we had a wide-ranging discussion about dorks and nerds, and I'm enough of a dork and a nerd that around 3:30 this morning, I listened to the entire address. And it was an April 25th, 1987 radio address. It's on YouTube. And I have absolutely no idea what the Reagan Foundation is talking about, because those words in that Canadian ad were directly from that April 25th, 1987 address that is up on YouTube. And the bizarre thing is that in their statement, they directed dorks and nerds like me to YouTube to see that the Canadian ad reflected Reagan's feelings about tariffs 100%. And here is a direct, unedited clip from that address that sounds just like the Canadian ad. Roll it, TJ.
So soon, because of the prices made artificially high by tariffs that subsidize inefficiency and poor management, people stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. The memory of all this occurring back in the 30s made me determined when I came to Washington to spare the American people the protectionist legislation that destroys prosperity.
It's all there. Willie, it's all there. Everything Ronald Reagan said, all the clips that were in that Canadian ad, that Ottawa ad, were all there in the address. It's really a very bizarre turn of events. Yesterday, Donald Trump said, well, I would have done the same thing if I were them. I understand why they did it. Then I don't know if somebody called the Reagan Foundation and said, hey, we need you to attack this ad. But they're attacking not only Reagan's words, but the foundation of Reagan's views on tariffs. He believed short-term tariffs were fine, but long-term tariffs, as he just said, wrecked the economy and would cost millions of people their jobs.
Yeah, it's strange. It's one thing for President Trump, we've come to expect that to misrepresent things, but for the Reagan Foundation itself to come out kind of in support of that argument is odd, as you say. And Jonathan Lemire, this just dropped overnight. President of the United States in a Truth Social post saying, yeah, we're done talking to Canada because my feelings were hurt about this ad, which, as Joe just laid out and we played, you could hear it, you could see it, you can go on YouTube yourself if you don't believe and watch. It's what former President Reagan said.
It's what former President Reagan said, and our current president is so easily triggered that a TV commercial can change international policy, trade policy, foreign policy. I mean, it's sort of an extraordinary encapsulation of where things are right now for this administration. And there's a lot of focus on tariffs and trade right now. The president later today heads to Asia. He'll meet with Xi Jinping while in Korea on the sidelines of a summit there, the Chinese trade deal. And that's been pretty tense at times. They hope to work on that. Obviously, we're waiting on the Supreme Court to make a decision whether all of these tariffs are legal in the first place. But Mika,
right.
This is the president of the United States throwing a fit over an ad. And we should note the timing of this is pretty remarkable because what else he gets angry about this today. What's tonight? Tonight is game 1 of the World Series. Where is that game being played? Toronto, Canada.
Oh boy.
So there's going to be let's watch the American national anthem likely get booed tonight like it was during that hockey tournament earlier in the spring.
Yeah.
But this is going to set at the exact moment where we should be celebrating our friendship with Canada. This happens.
Okay. And secondly, Joe needs to get some sleep. Like, seriously, what are you doing? We're talking about Trump tweeting in the middle of the night or whatever. He's up
speeches?
at 3:30 looking at Reagan speeches. It's not good for you.
It's very compelling. I mean, who among
you
us
need sleep.
is not awakened in the middle of the night and said, let me listen to a Ronald Reagan radio address from 1987. I think we all do that, right?
You need to take the magnesium that I gave you. There's only one that works.
Now, that stuff does not work.
No, it totally does.
No.
Across the board, I'm getting rave reviews, except from you.
I start talking like Pablo Torre. I don't want to sound like that.
Well, I know.
Thank God.
That's an issue. We'll get to that later.
Issue.
It's a big issue. I hope he's okay. I don't know.
He's not.
So we'll have him later. Katty K, this unpredictability.
You know, he's a Luddite. You know that? You know, Pablo is a Luddite, Mika. I mean, he doesn't like our Jonathan Lemire and our supercomputer. He doesn't like AI. I think he's probably scared of light bulbs in his own house. He probably turns around and sees one and goes, ah!
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, they
Very
put
strange guy.
shades over them for Pablo. It's all right. It's okay. Everyone's different. Okay, so
not for
Katty
something
K,
completely different.
This unpredictability, though, that's part of what we've seen from this president. At the same time, as he's making waves and making big changes in some regions of the world for the positive. I'm looking at the Middle East and is trying to figure out how to manage Ukraine. This unpredictability, I don't think necessarily is great for effective foreign policy.
Well, I mean, a part of the problem is that all of the things that Mike was saying that Europe is trying to do are great. And actually, I've said for years that Europe needs to boost its own defense. We can't keep calling 911 America every time there's a problem. The problem is that Donald Trump is asking those things at the same time that he's putting tariffs on these countries and making it incredibly difficult for their governments to enact the kind of reforms, do the kind of spending on defense that they need to do whilst they're fighting a tariff war. We had Mark Carney just this week, before that ad came out, saying, this is what he said: many of our former strengths based on our close ties to America have become our vulnerabilities. And the new Canadian doctrine going forward is going to be how much can we America-proof Canada. So the problem with the tariffs is that they cost him a lot of money. Mark Carney has to shore up the industries that he has to shore up because they're being tariffed by the United States. His fiscal situation is harder. It's exactly the same in Europe. The Germans are trying to do what they can to boost defense spending, but at the same time, they're having to face a tariff war from the United States. It makes it very difficult for these countries to do what they need to do, but the message is the same. Michael's message, Mark Carney's message: America-proof your future. I don't think that is the strongest position for America to be putting itself in going forwards.
As the debate over tariffs, trade and truth unfolds, tonight's story leaves us with more than just a headline. It leaves us with a question about leadership, credibility and the fragile threads that bind our allies together. Let's recap. In just a few hours overnight, President Trump declared an end to all trade talks with Canada, one of America's oldest and closest partners, all because of a Canadian television ad that used audio from Ronald Reagan's 1987 speech on tariffs. The ad, shown to millions during a baseball game, reminded viewers of Reagan's warning that tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation and the collapse of markets. Trump called the ad fake. But the truth, confirmed by journalists and the Reagan Foundation's own public archives, shows those words were real, directly lifted from Reagan's own address. The confusion, or perhaps the outrage, wasn't really about editing. It was about optics, about pride, about perception. And that's where this story takes a deeper turn. Because this isn't just about an ad or about tariffs. It's about how quickly emotion can override diplomacy. It's about how a single tweet or televised statement can reshape the trajectory of an international relationship that took generations to build. For decades, Canada and the United States have stood shoulder to shoulder in trade, in defence and in democratic values. A disagreement over policy or even over messaging shouldn't be enough to undo that trust. Yet in the current political climate, it seems that offence, not outreach, drives reaction. This moment also highlights something broader, the shifting definition of truth in the modern information age. When leaders dispute not just interpretations but facts themselves, we enter a dangerous era where credibility becomes a matter of loyalty, not logic. Ronald Reagan's own words rooted in caution, economic pragmatism and international cooperation, are now caught in the storm of political rivalry. And so we're left to ask, what does this say about the state of leadership today? Should national trade policy be shaped by genuine strategy or by fleeting emotion? And when history's lessons are conveniently ignored or rewritten, who truly pays the price? Politicians or the people? For Canada, the fallout may be economic. For America, it may be reputational. But for both, it's a sobering reminder that even the strongest alliances are not immune to ego. In the end, this episode might be remembered not for what it says about Reagan's legacy or tariffs, but for what it reveals about us. Our appetite for outrage, our shrinking attention spans, and our willingness to let perception overpower perspective. History tells us that leadership isn't about reacting first, it's about thinking longer. Reagan knew that. So did generations of leaders before him. The real question now is, who among today's leaders will remember it? If you found this report insightful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more real, fact-based news commentary.